Hello and welcome to Pulibrus Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, if you remember, on Twitter, I was debating on what this episode could possibly be. But you can see which one ended up kind of winning. You know, because I had to do a weird side because people really wanted to see both topics covered. But I decided, this one's probably the best bet, I guess. So with that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First is the arguably most good thing that we've heard so far. Kara Eastman won her primary. This was not at all actually surprising. You see, a lot of people were telling this like, oh, this is so big. When, I mean, to be fair, it's big, but it's not so big. Kara Eastman was the candidate last election. She beat a person who was a representative in the primary. She does well. She's been the candidate, like the nominee before, and this is just a no-brainer. The candidate she was running against was the daughter of the representative that she beat. So this wasn't exactly a hard thing for her to do in the primary. Now the general is where things are going to get a bit more interesting. You see, because last time around it was safe R all around. And the polls still say safe R. But the DCCC released a poll that showed Kara Eastman barely beating the incumbent Republican. I'll be fair. Barely beating him. Just barely. But that means something big. She could hypothetically win this. So, yeah. We should probably help get Kara Eastman in the House of Representatives. It's something I've been saying a little over and over again. Let's add to the squad. Let's add to the squad, not subtract. Let's get Murray Newman in there to be part of the squad. Let's get Kara Eastman in there to be part of the squad. Paula Jean Swearingen. You know, etc., etc. Get them to be a part of the squad, not subtract from the squad. Okay, so the next two stories are actually going to revolve around Joe Biden. Because Joe Biden is not necessarily doing so hot at this moment. The first story is progressive groups call on Joe Biden to adopt progressive foreign policy. A group of over 50 organizations sent a letter to presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden urging him to adopt a foreign policy that prioritizes diplomacy and multilateralism over militarism. The letter was also sent to President Trump. The effort was organized by Demand Progress, and backers include Greenpeace, Our Revolution, Muslim Public Affairs Council, and the National Iranian American Council Action. The group demanding Biden to commit in a number of progressive foreign policy positions, including reducing the military budget, diplomatic engagement with Iran and North Korea, opposing undemocratic regime change, supporting Palestinian rights, and protecting the War Powers Act, which requires lawmakers to authorize military action. A very reasonable, very, very reasonable statement. What is Joe Biden doing in response? Joe Biden supports unelected Juan Guaido in Venezuela, says U.S. should keep sanctions against Cuba. Joe Biden said last month that as president he would engage with Cuba, but the U.S. sanctions over its support for the government and Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela could remain in place. Joe Biden also recently expressed support for Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido in his efforts to restore democracy. Guaido has been trying to gain support the ouster of Maduro since last year's unsuccessful coup attempt. In related news, Venezuela said it arrested 3 mercenaries. Yeah, we got that part. So there's a huge fundamental difference between these two guys. We need to support Joe Biden. Like, seriously. These are progressive groups that are literally telling Joe Biden, here's what you gotta do. And then Joe Biden goes, Nah, I'm not gonna do that. Because guess what? Joe Biden, he's like, you guys got nowhere to go. You got nowhere to go but me. Well, no. We can go to Howard Hawkins. We can go to Gloria Lariva. We can go home. We don't have to support Joe Biden. That is the inevitable truth. We do not have to support Joe Biden. You can if you want. But the thing is, if you support Joe Biden, you're just kind of allowing him to do this. Like, I mean, if you want to support Joe Biden because you're like, we gotta get rid of Trump. Okay, but, I mean, Joe Biden isn't necessarily giving us, like, huge, staggering differences. Like, here's another thing. I know I said 2 stories about Joe Biden, but I'm gonna give a third one, because this one's is pretty hilarious. Well, I mean, it's more than, like, 2, like 3. It's a lot more. Though, to be fair, I'm not gonna read the whole stories, because I don't really want to. I'm just gonna read the headlines, because the headlines are the important ones, like the important aspects. These are 2 more headlines that Joe Biden has said. Biden, I wouldn't vote for me if I believed Tara Reid. And here's the second one. Biden campaign doesn't consider Latinos part of their path to victory, political operatives say. Yeah, you're really winning me over, Joe. You're really winning me over. Just amazing. I can't believe it. This is how you win the progressives over. You say Latinos are not part of a group, and you say, if you believe the woman that I raped, don't vote for me. Really winning strategy right there, Joe. This is exactly how FDR won 4 terms. He said, Mexicans are not part of my coalition, and he wheeled into the White House. This is perfect. You see why I'm not really keen on voting for him. He's not winning me over. There's time to win me over. It's not November yet. Like, I mean, I know I keep saying, like, I'm gonna vote green. I'm only saying who I will vote for based on the information I have now. There's nothing that I've seen so far that Joe Biden that indicates that I should vote for Joe Biden. Nothing. Just nothing. Now, you may say, like, oh, if you vote for Joe Biden, things may get a little bit better. That's the thing, a little bit better. That's not going to cut it anymore. I don't want slightly better than before. I don't want a return to the normalcy of the Obama campaign. I don't want that. I want something new, something fresh. Something like leading us into the future. Something big. I want that. I don't want, oh, things will be slightly better than they were before. It's just not going to cut it. It really isn't. He needs to be, like, he needs to give me something to vote for. Not just voting against. I don't need that. Sometimes Joe tries something slightly interesting, like that task force that he's doing. It has some good progressive voices on it. You know, Abdul El Sayed, Alejandro Ocasio-Cortez. But the thing is, it's still not enough. It's a step in the right direction, but it's just a step. I don't need a slight step with Joe Biden. I need a marathon. I need to see that he will actually do something big. Like, for example, Jay Inslee. Jay Inslee was kind of a corporate Democrat. Supported the public option. Guess what? I 100% would have voted for him because climate change. He was going to hammer in climate change, and I believed he would have done something with climate change because he built his entire political career on climate change. Joe Biden does not have that. His whole shtick, his whole campaign is literally just defeat Donald Trump. He doesn't have a plan on what to do when he gets into the White House. Literally just beat Donald Trump. We fix the problems. The problems are done. He said that during a debate. During one of the debates, they literally asked him, like, what would you do under your what's your first priority during your administration? And Joe Biden said, oh, my first priority is to defeat Donald Trump. It's like, in this scenario, you already beat him. This shows he has nothing. He needs to show me he has something. If he doesn't have something, I can't vote for him. I vote for something. I don't vote for nothing. And it seems like I'm not the only one who's starting to see this. Because this happened, Our Revolution Los Angeles joins the Movement for a People's Party. Our Revolution Los Angeles has announced today that an overwhelming majority of its members have voted to form a major new party and is joining the Movement for a People's Party. The chapter represents more than 10,000 people in Los Angeles. They are asking for Our Revolution chapters and progressive groups to join MPP and finish the political revolution in a people's party. And they also mentioned how some Bernie people have actually been starting to say a lot of sympathies, like Roseanne DeMauro, John Cusack, and Nina Turner. They've actually been being not so quiet on the fact that, starting a new people's party would be pretty cool. And guess what? I'd be supportive of it if there wasn't already the Green Party. And the fact that MPP has done literally nothing. Moving for People's Party, you've done literally nothing, and you're just now starting to be like, now we will do something. It's like, but you had the whole 2018 midterms to do something, run a couple of candidates. Maybe Tim Canova could have been one of the leading candidates in your slate. Maybe you have someone like Daniel Clark. Maybe you team up with the Green Party on a local level. Nah? Alright then. I want to build this new progressive third party movement. I want to do that. Because that is a big thing. The problem is, whenever the opportunity is gift wrapped to us, we never take it. We're always progressives usually just bend the knee to the Democrat and are just like, yes, we will vote for you now. Even when people, they explicitly state that they will join with us to form the new progressive third party. Where are they? I don't see them. During the 2016 election, Robert Reich and Chris Hedges debated over, do we build the Green Party up to be this huge progressive third party? Now? Do we do that now? Or do we go and vote for Hillary Clinton? Robert Reich stated, literally, we should vote for the Democrat now because Trump is so bad, and then I will work with you to build that progressive third party. But guess what? It's 2020. Reich ain't talking about forming no People's Party. The problem is we need to show that we can do this. And we need to show that this is not just a one-time thing. All these other progressive parties, Bull Moose Party, the Follett's Progressive Party, they usually just fall apart after one election because they form around a cult of personality. Movement for People's Party, they were fully set on just ready to go, ready to form a new political movement. But then, they submitted a letter to Bernie saying, hey, will you lead this new People's Party? He said, no. And then they didn't do anything for a long time. And another problem is that we're not necessarily uniting all the left parties. This would work if, let's say, Greens, Socialists, Peace and Freedom, Party for Socialism and Liberation, Workers' World Party, all these groups, disband and come together to form this national party. But that ain't gonna happen anytime soon. Believe me, I know a thing or two about third parties. Literally, all these groups are just sectionalist. It's their way or the highway. Even when people try to do it, it doesn't work. Jill Stein tried to have a unity left platform in 2016. Nope. Howie Hawkins is trying to do it now. Not working. And even now, there's a national, like the Vermont Progressive Party and like other state progressive parties joined together to form a national progressive party, while Movement for People's Party is still going on. It shows how politically irrelevant Movement for People's Party is. They're literally surpassing them. Rocky Anderson is talking about reforming the Justice Party. The Justice Party. That was 2012's attempt to be a big leftist party. Seriously. It's just... like, we have the momentum. All these groups wouldn't be sprouting if we didn't have the momentum. The problem is, we're not using this momentum to our advantage. We're not. We need to come together and form a big People's Party, whatever you call it, a Workers' Party, a Labor Party, People's Party, Social Democratic Party, Socialist Party, Democratic Socialist Party, whatever. Name is irrelevant. You can call it the Bernie Crap Party. You need to come together, though. If we don't come together and have, like, a united front, we ain't going nowhere. Of course, we'd like to have this, like, dream scenario where Bernie Sanders leads, like, Ro Khanna and the Squad and Chewy Garcia to form this new progressive party, but, I mean, that'd be a nice scenario, but probably ain't gonna happen, so we need to do it in our own way. And of course, there are people who are gonna say, like, the Yellow Vest movement. Yeah, there's time and place for that. But there's also time and place to, like, unite under this huge leftist party. There's a time and place for everything. Speaking of third parties, I guess I might as well talk about this. Justin Amash will not launch third party bid for president. Amash wasted my time too. It wasn't just Jesse. Justin decided to do it too. He said that there's pretty much no circumstance that will lead to him winning, so he will not run. Alright. At least Justin Amash is honest. And this might be a big problem for the Libertarian Party. Because literally, I do not see the Libertarian Party doing well in the 2020 election. Why? Because the populist momentum is not really in the Libertarian Party's favor anymore. What do I mean by that? Well, you'll notice that the Libertarian Party does well in certain time periods, but not in certain other time periods. They did well in, like, the 80s, and that was because, you know, it was kind of starting out, and people were starting to be like, oh, cool, a new platform, like a new political party to get things off the ground. Yeah, this is pretty cool. And, like, they got like a peak in the 90s, because that was when, like, third party movements were, like, peaking. You know, Reform Party, New Alliance Party, Libertarians, Greens were starting to get off the ground. Early 2000s was kind of when third party movements kind of started coalescing around, like, bigger names, you know, like Constitution, Libertarians, and Greens. You know, like, if you were a disaffected Republican, you'd normally go to, like, the Constitution or Libertarian Party, and if you were a disaffected Democrat or, like, a progressive independent, you'd go to the Greens. Then, you know, around 2008, Tea Party movement was starting to pick up. Greens and Constitution got a bit of a boost, whereas the Green Party kind of went down because, you know, the Howard Deans weren't necessarily doing so hot, so they were like, But then 2012, when, you know, Occupy Wall Street was, you know, starting to pick up, Greens started getting a little bit of a boost in momentum. Libertarians, they still had to, because the Tea Party was still relatively well known at the time. But then 2016, things started to even out, because that was around the time the Tea Party was starting to, you know, formally die, and then, you know, the Bernie Sanders movement started picking up. So, since the Tea Party movement's officially dead, and there's, like, no real big anti-Trump Republican movement, this is pretty much, like, I wouldn't say this is it for the Libertarian Party, because they're pretty wealthy people. They'll stick around. But inevitably, I don't think the Libertarian Party is going to be as politically relevant anymore. I predict very simply that they will get 4th place in this election because they don't have anything. And look at their top contenders: Vermin Supreme and Jacob Hornberger. They don't really have much there to be like a good political movement. Well, I mean, Vermin would probably get a decent amount of like protest votes, but I mean, Hornberger, the serious quote unquote contender for the Libertarian Party nomination, he doesn't really have that much that would be 3rd place worthy, because all of his stuff is like the typical Tea Party stuff that, you know, I vote for him for that, when hypothetically the better candidate to give that is Donald Trump. So there really isn't much room for the Libertarian Party to stick around. They'll probably still be relevant because they still do well in like down ballot races, but otherwise I don't think the Libertarian Party is going to be doing so hot in the presidential race. I predict that the Green Party is going to get like nadir numbers, like 2% at the very least. I don't think that they're going to be like going down. They'll get like 2%, or like, I don't know. Like, they don't necessarily, like, Howard Huggins, to be fair, he's not exactly like the, you know, well-known figure that would get like 5%, but he'll do well. He'll, it's just because he'll be in like the right place in the right time, you know. But, you know, whatever. Okay, now on to another story. Palestinian teen shot dead by Israeli forces. Zaid Fadil Kosaya, 15, was shot in the head during a raid on a refugee camp occupied West Bank, Palestinian officials say. Israeli forces have shot dead a Palestinian teenager after raiding a refugee camp in the illegally occupied West Bank, sparking clashes with residents, according to Palestinian Health Ministry. Zaid Fadil Kosai was shot in the head by an Israeli soldier during clashes in Al-Fawar refugee camp in the Hebron province, the minister said in a statement on Wednesday. 4 more youths were shot with live bullets, one in the abdomen, another in the chest, and the rest in the lower limbs, the ministry said. They have the right to defend themselves. Seriously. Like, I mean, I don't care if you're for a 2-state solution or a 3-state solution or a 1-state solution. You have to see who the aggressor is. The aggressor is not the Arabs anymore. It is not. You could make the argument that maybe during the beginning of the conflict they were the aggressors, but guess what? It ain't the beginning of the conflict anymore. Like, you want to know how this whole conflict began? Wealthy and influential people who happen to be Jewish were lobbying for, like, you know, UK, US to bring an Israeli state. I mean, like a Jewish state, you know, called Israel, because that was what they referred to. They referred to this area as Israel in the Torah and in the Bible. They were lobbying for this place to happen for a while, and US and all these other groups didn't really care because they didn't like Jews that much. World War II happens and the Holocaust happens. You know, we have remorse and we feel bad and we're like, you know, we gotta help Jews the best we can. So we decide we're gonna put the Jewish people in this area to call their home. Okay, that seems fair. The problem is, they don't necessarily get the approval of the people who currently live there. It was owned by the UK, but, you know, the Arabs that live there weren't exactly too keen on a bunch of Jewish people to be forced into their homes. So they didn't agree to the, you know, partition plan that was proposed to the UN. Then, the day that they were going to, like, leave, like, that it was going to be all said and done, certain individuals decided, no, we're going to live here anyways, with no partition plan whatsoever. So, they did. Then, the Palestinians who currently live there stated that as soon as UK forces leave, they would call upon their Arabic allies to wipe them off. But then there was conflict, and it ended with pretty much lines being drawn saying Jews live here, Arabs live here. Then Jewish people in Israel started expanding, getting a bit more mad at the Palestinians. Palestinians fought back. Then Israel's fought back harder with bigger weapons because they had the backing of the UN. And now Palestinians are pretty much going to be wiped off the face of the earth. So, I mean, you could make the argument at the beginning of the conflict, it was kind of like a gray area. And there were gray areas on both. Like, that's obviously a layman's terms. Like, explaining the Arab-Israeli conflict, but, you know, I'm just saying, that's a base way to explain it. I'm not a person who is like who studies all this for a living. I study it for fun, but not for a living. And I definitely don't need to be as articulate or, you know, powerful or whatever as someone who's like talking about this in front of a classroom. But I mean, it's pretty obvious who the aggressors are now. It doesn't matter if you believe that Jewish people should be in Israel or not. Who cares about that front? If they want to be in Israel, who cares? If Arabs want to be in Israel, who cares? Or Palestine, or however you want to divide the land. You know, 2-state solution, 3-state solution, 1-state solution. They all got their own ups and downs. But here's the thing. Let's be very clear. Who are the aggressors? The people who are literally pushed to like the two edges of their country that they were born and raised in, who have lost their capital, who keep getting shot and murdered, even if they just peacefully protest, or the people who are officially recognized by the UN and are allied with like every single major country. Who are the aggressors? It's not the Palestinians. It's just not the Palestinians. They are not the aggressors. They are not. Israel is the aggressor in this scenario. Not saying, like, push all the Israelis out and put the Palestinians back where they belong. There's a clear-cut solution to this. It would be the easiest solution. Like, it doesn't even matter that much how you do the solution. The solution's obvious. I mean, okay, I'd say it's obvious, but it's obviously not obvious. Otherwise, we'd have fixed this problem by now. Like, there should be a video. There are a lot of videos out there that explain, like, you know, all the different solutions to the Israeli conflict. You know, like, the 2-state solution, where it's divided into 2 countries. How do you divide it into 2 countries? Do you go by the original 1947 partition plan? Or do you just do it by how it is now? Or do you choose to divide it a different way? Really, I think the reason why it didn't work so well is because I don't get why they divided it that way. They cut Israel in in a way that literally divides Palestine in 2 sides. That's why there's the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. It's why the 2 areas of Palestine are literally just on the sides of Israel. It makes a little Israel sandwich. It's one way to describe it. Israel sandwich. But like, you get my point. It's like weird how it's divided up. They should have divided like in a simple, easy way. cut it in half. One half goes to Israel, one half goes to Palestine. The end. But then there's also the one-state solution, where it's like, oh, we're all kumbaya, or we kill all the Israels, we kill all the Palestinians. Or the three-state solution, where literally Jordan and Egypt are just like, oh, I'm going to get in on a little bit of this. I don't get why, but they decided, hey, we want to get in on this too. But seriously, this is just... It's a complicated scenario, obviously. But the one thing that should be pretty clear is Israel is the aggressors in this scenario. They're literally murdering children. Everybody makes this same joke about, in the lefty sphere, they make the same joke, Israel's always like, oh, these people, the Palestinians always seem to get in the way of our guns. It was a trap by Hezbollah. Okay, then why did you fall for the trap over and over again? There are Israeli politicians that literally say they want to round up the Palestinians and throw them in concentration camps. This is kind of the reason why you don't want to repeat this again, obviously. But again, it's obviously a very complicated issue, and, we should be free to discuss it. Everyone should be free to discuss it, and point out the fact that Israel is the aggressors in this scenario. But of course, we could also say, oh, but Hezbollah. Okay, yeah, boo, Hezbollah sucks. Okay, next. I'm not defending Hezbollah, I'm pointing out the fact that Israel is the aggressors in this scenario, and the reason why they're the aggressors is because of the fact that they are aggressing, which is what's causing these terrorist groups to rise up against them. If they were peaceful, Hezbollah would be a lot smaller. Let's just say that. Okay, now we're going to move off of that topic because I could probably ran about that for a while and ultimately say nothing. So let's move on to the smaller candidate of the day, John Mons. John Mons is an NAACP person who is running for the Libertarian Party nomination. He jumped in the fray a last minute, which is really weird. Because that was around the time when Amash was starting to whisper he might enter the race. But, he just says the basic libertarian stuff cut government spending, eliminate income tax, defund abusive agencies, slash the debt, break down institutional barriers. Okay, that's actually not necessarily libertarian, but whatever. Decriminalize drugs, free nonviolent drug offenders, limit government surveillance, stop fighting wars based on lies, bring home the troops and the drones, reduce veteran suicides. Every libertarian's always they got the ups and they got the downs. Turns out he doesn't have that much downs, to be honest. At least from the short platform I read, or as he calls it, the anti-platform. Okay, so now let's move on to the main topic of this video. I know I said that someone else, Sean Hannity, was kind of the face of Fox News, but to be honest, it seems a lot more to be this guy, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is an American conservative journalist, author, political commentator, who has hosted the nightly political talk show Tucker Carlson Tonight on Fox News since 2016. The reason why Tucker Carlson is very interesting is because he's not necessarily the same conservative who would be on Fox News as, the Bill O'Reillys and the Sean Hannitys. You see, he's not exactly... He's in a new vein of conservatism. Like a Trump-style conservative. I'll go over some of his general political views. He's described as a conservative or a paleo-conservative. And, some person called him a middle American radical, which is... Nah, not really. But, he kind of explains it well. He explains it's someone who's... Because he holds more populist economic beliefs, hostility towards corporations, but he's also, very... interesting in regards to, like, social issues. For example, let me explain. Early in his political career, he was a pretty well-known libertarian figure. He supported Ron Paul in 1988, and, supported Paul in 2008. He was a very well-known, he was even affiliated with the Cato Institute, but he's no longer affiliated with the Cato Institute. He's, promotes a bit more populist economics. Not necessarily leftism, but, there's a reason why we call some things populist left, because, he does say things that are rather populist. Like, for example, he attacked libertarianism, saying that, quote, market capitalism is not a religion, and he warned that economic and technological change that occurs too quickly can cause widespread social and political upheaval, and stated his belief that a model to follow is that of President Teddy Roosevelt, whose interventionist role in the economy in the early 1900s may have, in Carlson's views, prevented a communist revolution in the United States. So he's literally saying, in order to combat communism, we need to adopt Teddy Roosevelt's platform. You know what, Tucker? You got yourself a deal. That sounds similar to, Huey Long. Aren't you talking about your radical redistribution of wealth is, going to destroy us and make us communist? And he's like, no. This is the only thing our country has to fight against communism. He's attacked payday lenders. And here's the thing. You want me to tell you something that a Fox News person doesn't do? Carlson has also praised Democratic presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren's economic plan and her book, The Two-Income Trap, as, quote, one of the best books I have ever read on economics. He is very interesting on that. However, he's not perfect. He's argued, I don't know about climate change. Maybe climate change. But, he's also said some interesting things. He's decried the Republican Party and decried the Democratic Party, obviously. That's a Fox News thing. But he's decried the Republicans for, not doing what he thinks. For example, he didn't vote in 2004 because of the Iraq War. He hated George W. Bush and was like, this is dumb. Why are you doing this interventionist war? He even stated, I'm not for big government. I think the U.S. ought to hesitate before intervening abroad. I think these are conservative impulses. So by my criteria, Bush isn't much of a conservative. He's also said to John McCain, he's interested in ideas almost as little as George W. Bush is. McCain isn't intellectual and doesn't have a strong ideology at all. He's wound up as a sort of liberal Republican because he's mad at other Republicans, not because he's a liberal. And Carlton used an op-ed by Mitt Romney in the Washington Post to criticize what he described as a mainstream Republican worldview, consisting of unwavering support for a finance-based system and an internationalist foreign policy, which he argued would also be supported by a bulk of Democrats. That's true. That's 100% true. That is 100% based true. But it's also, he's criticized Robert Mueller. He has some things that we necessarily agree with, but then there's also has some things that we wouldn't agree with. For example, he said, we need to expand the U.S.-Mexican border, much like the Israeli West Bank barrier. His solution to combat, lowering wages is to kick immigrants out of our country because, they would lowering wages. Without the immigrants, they'd have to raise wages, I guess. He's also shit on Ilhan Omar. Because, she criticized the U.S., ergo, she's ungrateful for our country. He's stated that, they don't take COVID-19 seriously. Like, the U.S. officials don't take COVID-19 seriously. He stated, people you trust, people you probably voted for, have spent weeks minimizing what is clearly a very serious problem. But they are wrong. It is definitely not just the flu. And apparently, and to be fair, this might actually be good, because he apparently got Trump to take COVID-19 seriously, which is interesting. Do you want to know what's actually something even more interesting about Tucker Carlson? This might blow your mind, actually. Tucker Carlson's a Democrat. Yeah, you may not know this, but it is true. Tucker Carlson is a Democrat. And when I say he's a Democrat, of course, I don't mean like he rallies behind Democrats and like, obviously, he supported Ron Paul, so he obviously doesn't rally behind Democrats. But he's a registered Democrat. Because he lives in Washington, D.C., ergo, you pretty much have to vote in the Democratic primary to get anything done. You pretty much have to be registered a Democrat in order to vote for anything in Washington, D.C. And by that I mean like the elected officials. Obviously not if you're a politician who can do whatever. But he's also decried like them, saying like they always seem to vote for the most corrupt candidates over the idealists. So yeah, Tucker is an interesting figure. He's, of course, like, he is just one of the other steps in, like, I think the problem is many people consider this, like, the death of the Republican Party. It's literally not. Without Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson and Josh Hawley, the Republican Party would be dead. Because they had, like, literally nothing else. Like, literally nothing else. These people are the only things keeping them alive. Yes, they, of course, still appeal to, like, the traditional base of, like, we hate immigrants, we hate Muslims. But they also adopt a more interesting view. They are adapting to the changing societies. They are more populist in their thinking. They're, of course, not adherent leftists, but, it's like the same thing. People, like, say, like, when you get a Trump supporter off the ground, and you ask them, like, what are your thoughts on Bernie Sanders? They'll be like, Bernie Sanders, I disagree with him because he's a socialist, but I think he's a decent man. He's got some good ideas. I'll tell you that much. Like, that's what they'll do. They appeal to the more on-the-ground Republican. This is pretty much the on-the-ground Republican. If they were in these high positions, they don't, quote-unquote, care about corporations. They might still do, but, they don't say that. Old Republicans didn't say that either, but these guys at least seem to come off a bit more honest in that regard. Josh Hawley was proposing a bill that would get rid of bad landlords. Tucker Carlson calls out payday lenders and praises Elizabeth Warren's economic plan. They say that these interventions, regime change wars are not that good. We should get out of them. Okay, I'll be fair. Trump isn't really getting us out of them, but, they're at least coming off that way. This is the only way that the Republican Party could have adapted. If the Republican Party just kept going the way of Mitt Romney, they would have died a long time ago. It's just a shift that we are moving forward with. Populism is in. Whether you're a right-wing populist or a left-wing populist, populism is in. Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are the ones that the base of their party cares about the most. They are the ones that are looked at the most fond. It has positives in some aspects. It's good when he says, like, our interventionist wars are bad, but it's also bad when he says white supremacy is a hoax, but it's a mixed bag. It's the only way that the Republican Party would have actually stayed alive. That's just the inevitable truth. They had to adapt to this populist wing, otherwise they would have died. Like, they had to go the Ron Paul way at one point or another. And it just so happens that it didn't happen when Ron Paul was running for office. It happened like a couple years after Ron Paul was done. It's like those people who say Dennis Kucinich has been vindicated with the likes of Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar. Ron Paul and his ideology of the Republican Party has kind of been vindicated. Of course, there's still like the Mitt Romneys and the, more traditional Republicans. But the idea of the populist Republican is now back in. And they will end up becoming the mainstream of the Republican Party. When you talk to a mainstream Republican, you don't hear them saying like, oh, Mitt Romney is my idealist hero. They'll talk about like Ronald Reagan or Donald Trump or like a populist Republican. Not one of the mainstream corporatists. Much like with a Democrat. You don't go to a Democrat and they say, oh, I absolutely love Nancy Pelosi. Okay, well, maybe they do, because like Nancy Pelosi woman and strong woman be bad Donald Trump. But you get my point. This is the only way the Republican Party could have actually adapted with the times. And it was smart of them to do it. They could have just retreated back to be like, no, we must go back to the old corporate Republicans. But no, they didn't do that. They went with the populists, and they're doing well. They won. They flipped 4 Democratic seats in 2018 because they moved to the populism. They didn't go to the corporatism. They went to the populism. They aligned themselves with the populist, quote-unquote, like populist firebrand of Donald Trump. And that's where the Republican Party is going. I said it before, I'll say it again. Josh Hawley is going to be in the contention for 2024. He's going to be that populist Republican running forward. And he's going to have people like Tucker Carlson that are going to boost him up. This is the future of the Republican Party. Get used to it. This is why I keep rallying against the corporate Democrats like Joe Biden and such. Because we can't, I'm going to say we, because Democrats technically are supposed to represent me. We can't win if this is the opposition that we are giving. We need someone who can oppose that with a different kind of populism. Bernie and AOC and Ilhan and those kinds of Democrats are the only ones who can do that. And if we can't get them from the Democratic Party, we have to get them somewhere else. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say on that. That's who Tucker Carlson is. What are my thoughts on him? He's a sign of what's to come. This is what the Republican Party is going to be in the future, folks. Get used to it. We're going to have to do a lot more power than just talk about like, oh, they're corporatists, because they'll just spin around. We have to hit them and attack them from a populist viewpoint. We can't just say, oh, Trump bad. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, join my Discord, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.